You're here, which means that you've found Spirit Crumbs, leading you to your inner light worker. I will be sharing how these tiny little hints from the universe have led me to where I am today. I hope that by hearing my story and the stories of others, you'll pick up your own spirit crumbs along the way that will lead you to somewhere magical. Thanks for coming along for the journey. Let's see where it takes us.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Spirit Crumbs. I am your host, Andrea McCallum, and I am an artist and an intuitive energy curator. I'm hoping this episode is going to be a shorter one. I'm doing it in the evening on Monday the 7th. I've been thinking for the last couple of days about what this episode would be, and I decided to go back to the Akashic Records just for a quick question, just to ask them what you need to hear for today when you're hearing this and the coming week. And the first thing I was very aware of is I was seeing eights. And many of you may have been seeing posts and things about the Lionsgate portal being 8-8, which I now realize is going to be when you're receiving this episode. I go back and forth. There are some years where I feel very pulled to these types of like number portals and the dates. Um, the Lionsgate portal is open for, it's been open since sometime at the end of July. And I believe there's still like a week or so left of this energy. But for me, it's not so much about the portal, it's just about the energy right now in general. And a lot of what's been coming up for me and people I've been talking to have been around Venus retrograde in Leo. Like other retrogrades, it is an energy of revisiting and reflecting and a lot of things coming back into our awareness around themes of money, relationships, love, art, creativity, expression, romance, playfulness. All of these energies are what we may be experiencing because it's this blend of like Leo energy with Venus. And I think for me, I've had a little bit of everything already since it's been retrograde. And I think the message that came through from the Akashic Records has to do with this a lot. But immediately when I saw the eights before I even started recording what was coming up, I realized I've been seeing them all day today. I saw it on like license plates, house numbers, everywhere. So I do feel like this is kind of a pathway to us calling in abundance in all areas of life, like abundance of love, abundance of joy, abundance of creativity, but also in finances. I do feel like the more we lean into abundance in other areas of life, you may be feeling some scarcity creeping in, or just might be struggling a little bit in the last couple of months with finances and maybe needing some more income to come in. But I do feel like this advice to lean into the other areas of this Venus and Leo energy is really what's going to help us find what it is that we are meant to generate abundance through. Because when we're lit up, that's when we tend to be more magnetic. That's when we are pulled back onto our path and we're able to see where we should go next. So I'm just going to now read to you what came up. I decided to write it instead of recording it. I apologize if there's extra noise. I'm just doing this really quickly in my office and I have my window open. There's some papers blowing a little bit. So here we go. Abundance is on the other side of subtle shifts. Spirit is surrounding us with inspiration, synchronicities, and opportunities at this time. During this period of retrograde, allow yourself to explore creative outlets you may have abandoned from childhood or recently. By channeling your creative energy, you are able to access more of it. Your light is magnetic when you use the talents and gifts you have. You may have this energy in bursts followed by periods of rest. This allows for a balance of action and integration. This will be especially powerful for transmuting changes in other areas of life concerning finances or relationships. The triangle of money, creativity, and relationships must be in balance. If you are processing or integrating in one area, nurture another. Creative expression is always a magnetic choice as it moves energy and often provides clarity or healing. Keep shifting between the three to allow energy to flow. Subtle shifts in awareness and actions will have a big impact as we move through the rest of Leo's season. Hope, dream, trust, create, rest. And what that last line of just the individual terms was showing up as in my head was all of the energies and messages that I've been channeling for the last few episodes in the last couple of months. So what it was showing me afterwards, I was just getting a visualization. Those two hard to like write down. But what I was being shown was that it started with the energy of hope and that we are allowed to lean into hope again without needing to have a disclaimer of, I hope this will happen, but I'm okay if it doesn't, or, but it probably won't. We're not going to that energy anymore. We're just leaning into the positivity and the optimism of hope. And that came with the star card that I saw from the Light Seers Tarot, where she's holding a string that is attached to this star. And it's this energy of being like tangibly connected through spirit to our dreams. The second word, of course, was dream. And this is what we've been talking about the last couple episodes, where I've been just naturally ended up doing these dream life meditations again that I had forgotten about and making that part of a daily practice that was really grounding for me. And then I received the download to start doing dream life readings. And I had to sit with that because I didn't even know what those were at first. And then I was encouraged to just try one for myself. And then I did a few more. And then I started offering them publicly. And I've done a bunch. And they've all been so uplifting, even for me to experience. Because, I mean, what is not to love about tuning into someone's dream life and realizing that sometimes it is just a subtle shift in order to get from where you are now to where you dream to be. And I think sometimes we don't realize we've done so much work already. And it really is just a subtle mindset shift sometimes, or just a subtle openness that will end up giving us clarity or allowing us to be open enough to see when the right opportunity or synchronicity shows up. And once we act on it, all of a sudden things start clicking. The next word that came up was trust. And this is related to those two. And what it has been showing up for in myself and other people's readings that I've been doing is this trust that we've been talking about hope, we've been talking about dreams, talking about all these things. And for me, it's easy to see it for other people. And I think that's why these dream life readings have actually been impacting me so much. But I trust that if spirit's telling me for someone else that something is very close, that is very close for them and that it is going to happen. It feels very certain. But for ourselves, sometimes it's difficult to trust that what we want or what we desire is possible or is going to happen. And sometimes we have to trust ourselves, which I believe came up in the last episode. I'm getting progressively worse at remembering what I've already talked about or what I've shared recently in episodes. But I do remember mentioning that in some capacity in the last episode. And that's where this trust is really coming in, is that like we trust spirit, we trust that good things can happen for others. And it's time to start trusting ourselves. I actually was tuning into the energy of seeing your current life from your a past version of yourself's perspective, as if this was your dream life. And I thought about it and I was like, actually, that is a very interesting perspective. It kind of goes back to, I believe it was in an episode that I described this before, with how you, if you tune into like this sensory experience of where you are right now in life, like how would you, like what would trigger memories of right now in the future? Like what will you look back fondly on? And thinking of this being a dream life, doing the opposite, where now I'm tuning into my dream life in the future and noticing more sensory things the more I tune into it. And I think, there was a time not that long ago when being able to make my own schedule and have time to make art again and feeling like there's actually like energetic space for that so that I'm not feeling stressed in order to take time out to do that, being able to rest when I need to rest, and yeah, just having a lot of freedom that I didn't have before, and having like traditional jobs or being in school or all those things. And so I've trusted myself to get to this point, and I've gotten here. And that was a big leap from where I was. And somehow I just kept following the steps until I got here. And so why can I not trust that if I can see very clearly this life that is in all of these meditations that I've been doing, then why would I not trust that I am able to get myself there? I've done it several times in the past and with a lot less resistance. And I think maybe it is just because I am more aware now and I'm tuning into my energy so much that it's almost making me like hyper aware of things. But yeah, it was just that when that came up in this visualization, when all of these words came up, that was what I was being shown. It was kind of like a fast, like a flashback version of all of these thoughts together. But yeah, it was talking about trusting spirit, trusting the universe and synchronicities, and trusting yourself to show up in a way that will be able to navigate that path and get you where you want to go. The next word was create. And this is a reminder that, like, when you trust and you start taking action. So the create was showing up as, yes, it being creative in whatever form that is for you, but also taking action on whatever's coming up. And this is where my definition of spirit crumbs really comes in, where synchronicity is like the energy I feel that like makes you pay attention and recognize signs or repetition or those things that are lining up, or when you connect with the person at the right time. It's like this energy of the universe bringing these things to us. Serendipity is the feeling when like everything feels a little bit magical. But for me, spirit crumbs are things we can take action on. They're tangible hints from the universe. And so that's where this shift from trusting into creating is recognizing the things that we're pulled to that show up for us, and then actually starting to take action and creating that dream life by taking one step at a time. So it may take a few actions before the synchronicities show up, or you may have a few synchronicities before they turn into spirit crumbs you can act on. But the main thing is to just start doing something and then hope that that will bring you closer into that energy of movement and flow. And the next and last word in this series is rest. And this is key because it goes back to what they said in this message about having a balance between action and integration, and how like we may have bursts of energy where we get a whole bunch of synchronicities or we get a whole bunch of creative energy and we start creating things and taking action, putting offerings out there, whatever it is that you feel pulled to. But then just really pay attention to your body for when you need to rest, because when we're doing these things, they have quite an impact and they have an energy to them. Every action, every thought, everything we're doing has energy behind it. And because the energies in general I'm feeling are just so amplified right now, even the smallest actions have big impact. And it's what it's showing me is that normally we're like super slow and the universe is like lightning fast. But what I'm being shown is our human actions right now are like really having a ripple effect way more than it usually does. And then the universe actually needs some time to like adjust and not catch up to us because it's always going to be able, like, we're not faster than the universe, but it's just that like things that they're working on with us just require a little bit of like push and pull because everybody's actions are all happening simultaneously. And it's just a matter of making sure everything is aligned as we keep moving forward. So I'm just being shown like a little pause. It's like when you see shows where like the freeze gun like freezes everybody except the main characters who get to like finish what they're doing and then they like unfreeze. I'm kind of seeing it like that energy where the universe is like really responding quickly to everything we're doing. But as the human version of us being able to sit here, it's kind of nice because it's coming at this time when, we have a lot of emotions probably coming up around this Venus retrograde and processing either things we're letting go of or changes we have to make, or maybe we're overwhelmed because there's so much all of a sudden coming up at once. Like maybe we've been really stagnant in all areas of life and all of a sudden all areas are moving at once. That's what I'm being shown as being like the most common thing that's coming up. So you may like all of a sudden be like, oh my gosh, I have to move. I just met someone. I have a promotion coming up at work. Like my kids need me for something. Like he might just have a lot of things happening at once. And so these ebbs and flows where like when it feels like it's time to rest and release and be in that energy, really let yourself sink into it because you never know when the next wave of inspiration or energy is going to come through. I also just wanted to note that in the Leo season remote recharge, we did have some messages that came up around subtle shifts and how even like the smallest change to like habits or routines or practices, even like rituals that you do, can have a really big impact right now. So, the other thing I just wanted to share is today, so this is on Monday, I did have plans that fell through and I was really disappointed at first. And then all of a sudden I was like, wait a second, I've already been on a roll like all weekend. I had all this energy. I was doing cleaning and organizing and all these things I've been not putting off, but just didn't have the energy for. Partly executive dysfunction as the usual, but all of a sudden I just had all this energy to do it. And I just leaned in. I was like, you know what? I kept thinking like, oh, I'm going to sit down and take a break. But I believe it was in the last episode when I shared that every time I got back into my habits, my scrolling on TikTok and anything that really wasn't serving me, I would hear a loud noise, like whether it was my drum cracking or that clothespin that exploded, just all kinds of weird things that I had this like before I could even sink into the pattern, I would stop myself and be like, no, I don't, that didn't feel good. I'm going to keep doing this. And so even in my downtime, I've been choosing to do more reading and other things instead of scrolling. I think it was almost a month ago now, if not longer, I turned off all of the notifications for my social media. So I have to actually go in and actively check. And I've had all notifications, like the little numbers on all of my icons gone for longer than that, because that really like activates me seeing them there, even if it's something that I know what it is, it just activates me. So it's actually been really helpful for keeping me from getting pulled into those patterns once I got out of it. Obviously, I was still scrolling on TikTok regardless, but I just want to say like that subtle shift of making that connection. And again, this goes to like being open to have the awareness and see that that was a pattern of all of the noises that were happening where I was like, that's interesting. This is like the fifth time I've heard a loud noise when I've been on TikTok. So just pay attention if you start to notice anything like that and start to notice what your patterns are. And again, I actually was not being really harsh with myself. I knew that there was a reason I must be like going back to these patterns, that I must be processing something or like overwhelmed. And I was just like very aware of it. And I wasn't really judging myself. I was just accepting it. So I think acceptance is a big part of it. I'd probably add that to the words here, maybe between create and rest or trust and create or something. But that's something else that I realized was like, I was just letting myself be in that energy. And maybe that was my way of resting because I'm not very good at just sitting and doing nothing when I know I have things to do. So maybe that was part of my rest phase, was the acceptance. But then today, having this open day, I was like, well, I was already on a roll. So I ended up getting more laundry done. I did laundry yesterday as well, cleaned my bathroom from top to bottom, did a whole bunch of stuff. And then, yeah, today I got some more laundry done, did a few more things, put away all my laundry because I use drying racks all around my apartment and I hang stuff from my curtain rods. So I went and gathered it all, put it all away. And then I actually just sat down and finally pulled open this tub of air dry clay that I've had for a long time. I don't even know when I ordered it. And I had it out and I had it ready to go on the weekend on Saturday or Sunday. And then realized it was late and I wanted to go to bed. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to start it now because I'm also trying to go to bed early and read instead of staying up late. And then I actually just sat and I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to just watch the same old stuff. And I watched two different documentaries that were art documentaries on Canopy. I've talked about Canopy before on another episode, I know, but it was a while ago. It's with a K and it's a whole bunch of different documentaries and films. It's usually through libraries. It's free. I think I get 8 credits through my library. And yeah, there's some really interesting ones there. And I love all of their art documentaries because they have like a blend of like contemporary ones and like older ones. But today I watched one on the Heretics, which was a feminist publication. I believe it was in the 70s that it was very prominent. And they were going in like catching up with a bunch of the different artists who were involved in it. And that was really inspiring. And then right after that, I watched one on it was called Handmade or something like that. I can't remember. I'm terrible at remembering things like that. But it was all about different people and their connection and practices around craft and art making that's all handmade, and how some people were taking it from more of like an approach from being a way to show more of that work as in like galleries or publications, etc. And then others were doing craft fairs, had online businesses. Some of them had gone through for fine arts and then kind of got themselves out of the gallery scene and started doing more markets and things where they could actually interact with people. So yeah, that was really inspiring. So as I'm sitting there working with clay, which I've never really worked with before, it was just really cool to be watching this and really like absorbing that inspiration. So I made a couple things, which I'll probably share at some point once they're dry on Instagram, most likely on my concrete and crystals one. And yeah, it was just a really good day. And then I also went for a walk. It was a cold day, well, not cold, but like cooler day. It was like around 18 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. I feel like, let's see, 20, 40, like maybe around 60 degrees, 65 degrees, something like that. But yeah, so it was like the perfect day to be indoors doing stuff. But I did go out for a walk before I had dinner. And then I had food made from the weekend. And it was just really relaxing. I ended up watching a bit of TV and then was like, you know what, I am going to record this episode. And that's when I came in and kind of sat with the Akashic Records to get that message. And although it was a short one, I feel like that's all we needed, right? Subtle shifts, subtle messages, short messages, big impact. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of share that like this is something that I've been talking about for a long time and actually having time to make art and letting myself do that. And now this is a whole 3 days that I didn't really work other than responding to a couple of messages. And I focused on myself and my space, which I've been talking about, as you know, for a while. And it's like I try not to be, like I said, too judgmental of myself if I'm not able to do the things that I know I need to do, because eventually I do them. But the energy right now is really supportive. If you take one step, the energy will be there to keep you going. And that's kind of what happened. I just chose to do one thing that was on my list of things to do, cleaning. And it just spiraled from there. And all of a sudden I was like, okay, well, I'm already going. Might as well keep going. And that hasn't happened for a very long time for me, that kind of momentum. So I feel like if I can do it, you can do it. And if your period right now is in the period of resting and not having the energy, just let yourself be in that, because you will have the energy come back. But what I'm seeing is that once we start on this trajectory of like following the energy, reconnecting with our bodies, with spirit, with our motivation and inspiration again, then that's where the abundance comes, where we will be either like making the things that will be our next source of income, or we'll connect with the people that are meant to bring us into the next phase of our path, or we'll just have the energy to maybe rebrand something and put it out there again. And so I'm really excited. I feel like this energy is what I've been seeing in the forecasts, like in my newsletter and in our cosmic energy reports. This week, actually, from that, speaking of which, is the Empress, which I just realized now is very aligned with this energy. It's like making our dreams and our I guess, like creative ideas into reality and grounding them and having this like unconditional love that supports us. So no wonder this energy is coming up, and this is the message that came through. So I really do firmly believe that this is what is coming up for the week. And, we'll have another, I think next week is another sort of revisiting week to reassess things and check in with ourselves again. But if I'm not mistaken, the end of Leo season is the Four of Pentacles, I think, which is stability and just kind of eliminating any ruminating thoughts around scarcity, and then really feeling secure as we move forward into Virgo season. So I hope this resonates with you. I do have a few spots left in August. I'll eventually open up a little bit in September, but I have a few spots left for Dream Life readings. If you don't see anything available, feel free to reach out and I'll try to put a few more in there. But they've been really expansive for me to do, and I am really loving them. So I'm so glad I took that advice from Spirit and put them out there, because they really are, I think, allowing many people to tap into this energy of the dream life and hope. And again, I'll just say it: hope, dream, trust, create, and rest. So whichever part of the spectrum you're on right now, just enjoy it and know that the other energies will come to follow, and trust yourself more than anything.
Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Spirit Crumbs. You can find me on Instagram for this podcast at Spirit Crumbs, or you can also find me at Concrete and Crystals for my own spiritual offerings and more tidbits about my own journey. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.